And we are live. Welcome back to All for United. It is a weekend review. I'm Ben. It's good to have your company. We have got a top panel again today. It's lunchtime. Grab some grub and join us on the live stream in the live chat as we have so much Premier League action to discuss, including a defeat for United. Not just that, though. Seems like there's a lot of attacking football in the Premier League this weekend. We've seen quite a few goals and we've seen quite a few upsets. Who knew that Arsenal were going to win a game? We'll get onto that in a bit just after this. Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United. And welcome back. It is a weekend review. It's good to have you guys with us. Hit a like on this video and the retweet button if you're watching through Twitter. Also, make sure you hit the like button and get in the live chat on YouTube as well. Jamie's in there. Garth is in there. Thank you guys for getting your messages in early doors. Mark, let's start by having the final say on our game against Villa. Obviously, disappointing result. How do you reflect on it a few days after?
Yeah, a very disappointing result. Obviously, we had an opportunity there, didn't we? There were other results that happened this weekend. It would have been great to get at least a draw out of it. Obviously a win, but at least a draw out of it. And it was very disappointing in the end. But it's not all doom and gloom. You know, we've spoken about it at great lengths over the last few days. And my views still stand is you know, we're not going to win them all. We didn't play particularly well. And a few weeks ago, we were all sort of going in about the fact that how well we were playing, and that doesn't change dramatically. So I think it's just a bad week at the office. I think that this is really going to be the telling time for Ollie and his coaches to really pull ourselves out of this. And that's going to be a mark on how good they really are.
Yeah, Neil, you weren't happy after the Villa game. You let that known in a few WhatsApp chats that we are all in. Where did it go wrong for us against Villa then?
Oh, God. How long have we got? This probably coaching, management, on field. I thought the team was wrong. I thought Villa would, we should be beating teams like Villa. I mean, if, I know we had discussions about who and what are our rivals, but Villa, we should be putting teams to Villa like to bed with half an hour to go, and then have half an eye on the Villarreal game, which now suddenly becomes an absolutely massive game for Ollie, because if they don't get a result, that's the third midweek on the trot. What concerns me about Saturdays, we don't seem to be. We seem to be a team that was always going to score, looks like it was going to score quite a few goals. And we seem to have sort of dried up quite quickly. And that's a little bit of a concern. I mean, I think the keeper from the Villa clearly got into Bruno's head. God knows what he was thinking. But, you can't blame someone for missing a penalty. It happens. But we are just rudderless at the moment, I think. I mean, I know Mark's got his opinion, and this is all about different opinions, but I'm actually quite worried in terms of you can't win the league in the first few weeks, but you can definitely lose the league in the first few weeks, because we could be in a position where we're starting to play catch up, and we're not even into October, and that's what worries me with this team and the management as well. I don't think there's the experience at all from the management side.
Well, let me hit on one of those points quickly with Ahmed. Obviously, my biggest concern, and I said this on Uncut last night, which is worth you all watching. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I managed to get Karthik and Callum to go on a virtual date. It was brilliant.
Oh my God! This is why I don't watch YouTube goals.
You need to, Ahmed. You'll learn a few or two. You'll learn a thing or two, Ahmed. Trust me. But on that, let me just quickly hit on the goal issue that Neil was talking about. Things seem to have dried up. 55 shots on goal in our last two games, 10 on target. What's going wrong in the forward end of the pitch?
Oh, wow. I wish I had just as much time as Neil to answer that question. I have to be honest, the last two games in particular have exposed for me what ultimately is still a big issue with United in the final third, and that is solving beating a team in the low block. And I find even last season, at times we concede first, and annoying as it was to concede goals, we still managed to beat sides from 1-0, 2-0 down through, sheer bravery, quality, and actually being able to find a way of beating teams with the low block. I thought we'd solved that last season, but it's clear to me that this season Ollie has sort of backtracked a little bit on old laurels, and it's not ideal. And I'd rather us be showing confidence in the final third, not being afraid to do something creative against those sides in a low block. And West Ham and Aston Villa, for me, I think they were prepared for what United were going to deliver in the last two games, especially Saturday. And something I found to be, evident from the outset was we simply couldn't work the ball through the middle correctly. And sometimes when you can't play the ball through the middle, you're going to have problems with, your wide players not being able to tuck in. You're not sort of dragging players out of position. You're finding now that opposition sides are happy to just stand where they are and let every bit of, every player move in about 20,000 different motions in one space, hoping that they find the lucky pass that gets behind their back line, even just to get the ball across to a teammate. The goals are and also shooting for me is a massive concern. I mean, Ronaldo's a signing and a half, and he brings so much to us on a goal scoring front. But if you don't have everyone sort of clamoring around him and finding the net on a regular basis, you're starting to find that we won't get those 3 points, all the crucial results in the cup competitions that we need to make our season a success.
Ahmed, the important stat out of all these, we can have a look at the shots on goal, the shots on target, but I don't think Ronaldo had a shot from inside the box against Villa. So if you're not going to give him the service, he's not going to score the goals. That's the same with any player on the pitch. Pogba can score from 30 yards out if you give him the ball and he's got the space, if you give it to him in space. Bruno can score a goal from anywhere, but you've got to get him the ball in the space and help him out. Let me just quickly read a few of these comments, Neil, and I'll come back over to you. Garth says, we've only played 5 games as a team with the new signings. It's no one's fault. The team is just adjusting. Trigger said, just because we won with him on the left doesn't mean he fits. I think he's talking about Pogba. It's like taking painkillers and not the right medicine to cure your disease. Neil, I feel like I'm coming to you now at a very weird time after saying this, mate, knowing you as long as I have done. I hope you're feeling good, by the way. I hope you're all okay. I know you've had a hefty op recently.
Scar's not bad.
Properly. Mate, I can't even see it. You're doing all right. That was just from Millwall away, was it? That was just the one from Millwall away, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That wasn't from the op. Look, tell us. You had your hand up. What was the point you wanted to make off the back of Ahmed's?
I think the player that we're missing is Cavani. I think he's much more of a classic focal point in that team, and I really do think that this team is missing his experience, is missing his guile, and he's an absolutely. And I was, as you know, Ben, I was completely against the signing of Cavani. I think I was on a show with you, and I was going, no, but he has brought so much to the front third of the team, and having such a focal point, and I think he's been a big miss, and there's obviously no way they can play Ronaldo and Cavani in the same team, but I think Cavani's been quite a big miss for this team, because the amount of chances we've created, you would fancy Cavani converting.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Then again, are we creating the chances for a number 9 like Cavani and Ronaldo?
I know.
I don't think we have done in the last couple of games. I mean, I know we've had shots on goal, but again, with the eye test, we just haven't created enough. But beyond the low block, I suppose, Ahmed, the point you was making.
We're quite easy to play against as well at the moment, I think.
Oh, you just need a bit of aggression. It's the same. It's the same. It's always been the same. And I don't know, Mark, if you want to hit on this. We lose the midfield battle, we lose the game. Yeah. And it tends to be against these clubs like Villa that we do lose the midfield battle, we lose the game. Like, for instance, no one's stuck with John McGinn. I think if we're stuck with John McGinn a bit more from a defensive point of view, from United, one of the midfielders sort of done a man-marking job that Herrera used to do so well for at least a section of that game in that second half. Villa would have had nothing going forward. He was the talisman. He was creating everything. Whilst you're hitting on that, also, if you want to hit on Sam's point here, he says the defence is so fragile. Seems any team can fancy at least a goal against us. I don't remember when we last kept a clean sheet. Well, we have so far, away to Wolves and Southampton. So, no, wait a second, Southampton we didn't. That's
just Wolves.
Was it 0-0? Just Wolves. Just Wolves.
Yeah.
And even that was dodgy, wasn't it? Go on, Mark.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is won and lost in the midfield, and this goes back to what we were all calling for in the summer, is that defensive midfielder. I saw a couple of comments as well suggesting, talking about this double pivot again, and really it's a bit of a rubbish term because it's not quite how it works. One person will sit back and one person will be the go-between. It doesn't work as two defensive midfielders. So that I just wanted to address that. But it is won and lost in midfield, and I think really, as much as there's a couple of things I want to make actually. Really, as much as the midfield weren't to blame at all, I think that this really is the problem. And with that, I mean defensively, if you have someone that's able to work with the with a good amount of positional awareness, with a good amount of defensive capability, which Fred and McTominay don't have, you're going to shore up the back four. So that kind of addresses the first point you made, okay? But this also means as well that we're a bit lacklustre when we go forward. We're missing Pogba in the middle because he's playing on the left-hand side, which I don't think he plays badly. I think he's actually a very good player to break down those low-block teams. It just didn't work at the weekend. It just didn't work against West Ham in midweek. And it's just one of those unfortunate things. But again, if you can get that sort of defensive midfielder, you'll be able to unlock and support the back four, and I just think that's what was missing with regards to Cavani and Ronaldo. I think Ronaldo has enough nuance about him in order to do exactly what Cavani does, his movement, his heading ability, and we weren't missing that. It was just the kind of creativity just before that point. And actually I feel that a lot of players at the moment, particularly Greenwood, I think that he's obviously flying high at the moment, but with that, he's obviously very overconfident, and you saw on a number of occasions he snatched at shots. He didn't look up. He had his head down because he was thinking about his glory. That's not a criticism. That's just what I saw in that game in particular, and I think that they need to bring themselves back to reality a little bit and know that there are players around them and maybe look up a bit more and create that opportunity. I think if Greenwood, on another day, if Greenwood had made a couple of better decisions with making a pass to Ronaldo at one point, making a pass to Bruno at another point, we could have been 2 up at the time.
That's a good point on Greenwood's potential overconfidence. And again, I think just feed back to the analysis that Ahmed said a minute ago, in terms of United playing against these low blocks. Sometimes you have to play that extra pass. In games when you're not, you don't have to, and you can have that shot and maybe it goes in 9 times out of 10. But when you're playing against a low block and there's bodies behind the ball, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a little deflection and it's going to go wide or it's going to get blocked. So yeah, I do agree with you on that. Look, the weekend review isn't just about talking about United. We've got some great shows out there where we talk about United Villa, including the match reaction, which Mark smashed after the game on Saturday, done a brilliant job. And also last night on Uncut. So go back, we actually had a really big debate about Pogba and whether he makes United's most balanced 11. And there's certainly calls on that show that potentially he doesn't, even though he is as good as we know he is. But let's talk about a really random weekend of Premier League football this weekend. A lot of action, and it could end this weekend with the M23 derby being a game that we end up watching intently tonight in Palace and Brighton, because Brighton can go top of the league tonight. Bonkers, but start to the season for those guys. They've been flying high of the Seagulls. But let's start, shall we, with the other lunchtime kickoff. City beating Chelsea. Neil, City have had a slow start to the season this year. Chelsea have come out the blocks, but Chelsea not as good by the looks of it. Saturday lunchtime. I've only seen the highlights, and City got the win they deserved. They should have got more.
I was more than surprised at that. I thought Chelsea would. Chelsea have looked head and shoulders the best team in the Premier League, I think, so far this year. I was pretty stunned about that. Underestimate Pep and City at your peril, I think. I still think it's Chelsea are the favourites to win the league, but there was some, like you say, there was some crazy results, and that was one I didn't think. I thought the best City could go in there was a draw probably. I was very surprised.
Yeah, Ahmed, on that game, just quickly, I think the shock is more with how bad Chelsea played versus the actual fact that City had turned up and beat them at Stamford Bridge. It's not like a Tuchel team not to turn up. I think that was a shock, right?
It is surprising. I do watch highlights, but I try to watch as much of many games as possible because assessing your rivals is as important as obviously looking at your own team. And something I've learned already from, I think there's a significant difference to the Champions League final to the game on Saturday, is that Chelsea were for once not the aggressors. It was more that City were the aggressive team. They looked the side that wanted it more than Chelsea. And for once, you kind of step back a bit and look at Chelsea and think, okay, they're not exactly going to play every single game, at 100%. They will add points, take a back foot off the pedal, maybe look at trying to find ways to protect themselves from being, demolished. Like City completely dominated the game on a possession front, on a opportunities front. They had plenty of efforts on goal. Chelsea barely got shots off. In fact, they only had 5 shots in the game, none on target. And with the ball being in City's possession for large amounts of it, all they could really do was stand off and allow them to do what they had to do and hope that they could get little moments where they could break in behind or maybe even, just get something against them. City played narrow, City played with triangles, played 1-2-3s across the pitch. It made it hard for Chelsea. And I think Tuchel for once was, surprise, out tactics by Guardiola. And I think it's, as Neil said, you will want to, judge them at your peril because there will be days where City will be off colour. Maybe there's an opportunity where they could drop points and others will profit from that. But when they are playing against the top 6, I think we're going to see the best of them. And you should see more of this system where they play confident, keep them playing on the front foot, encouraging themselves to get that early goal sometimes and start to progress forward and score more and more throughout the season. So for me, Chelsea took, I think, one step back this week, and losing Reece James won't have helped either because that sort of messes up their system. But for the short term, I think that's a statement win for Man City. For Chelsea, they'll need to recover quickly, and the sooner the better, in my opinion. But yeah, big win for City this weekend.
Yeah, Sam said credits to Mendy. The scoreline was still acceptable. Brown Light making a point, as you said, down. There's 0 shots on target at home from master tactician Tuchel. Mark, I just wonder, we've spoken on this show before about the Tuchel honeymoon period. None of us are saying this is the point where it all goes downhill. But I do wonder if this might dent their confidence a little bit. We've seen nothing between City and Chelsea to suggest that Tuchel doesn't have Pep's number. But a bit like AJ did on Saturday night, I sort of feel like Chelsea took a bit of a battering on that football pitch on Saturday.
Yeah, listen, I think this showed me one thing at least, is that every team's fallible and every manager is fallible and people are going to get things wrong. And I think that's just what happened. I think Man City knew how Chelsea were going to set up. They knew how Chelsea were going to play and they didn't allow them to. And ultimately City played the way they wanted to. And I think this is where United have a problem. They respect other teams too much and try to go against whatever sort of tactics and formation they play, whereas United should just go in head first. This is how we're going to play today, and you've got to catch us, right? And that's exactly what City did against Chelsea. And listen, Chelsea have obviously had a good run. It could possibly be the end of a honeymoon. We'll have to wait and see next week, and hopefully the same conversations we talked about Chelsea and now they're going through a bit of a problem, just as United are at the minute. And we'll have to see. I think teams will get complacent, and sometimes you're going to get taken by surprise. But City were excellent.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you on that. Another side that was excellent this weekend was one of the two in the North London derby. I think that was a completely different Arsenal display to what we've seen all season. They played out of their skin. Neil, counter-attacking football at the Emirates, and it was
the Arsenal.
That wasn't it?
Well, as Arsenal, they say,
we would have funked it.
As they say, up the arse. But I thought, I've just watched the highlights again this morning, and they destroyed Spurs. And that they absolutely. I mean, I don't know how good Spurs are. You talk about honeymoon periods. We could talk about Spurs for a day and a half. Spurs, the last 3 games, have now conceded 3 goals in every game. Is it 2 3-0s and a 3-1?
That's 3 in a row, actually.
Yeah, so 3 games. So the defence is clearly all over the place. But Arsenal absolutely destroyed them. And, you know, they looked... they're above them now in the league now, aren't they, or something as well, Arsenal? So if you're an Arsenal fan this morning, I think you're pleasantly surprised about the possible turnaround in their fortunes. You don't know, but they played some cracking stuff. I mean, I'm a big fan of Smith Rowe, and Saka. I think he's a lovely footballer to watch. And Aubameyang 2 years ago was probably one of top 2 or 3 strikers in Europe. I mean, he played really well yesterday. Going forward, they were awesome. And at the back, they didn't really need to do much. Us 4 could have played at the back, and Spurs wouldn't have had a chance.
I mean, and that does signal there, Ahmed, doesn't it? An issue at Tottenham. I mean, what is going on? They won their first. Was it the first 3 games?
Yeah.
And they were unbeaten run. Nuno got manager of the month. They look quite sturdy. Now, as you said, they've conceded three goals in each of their last 2, wasn't it? It's in the last 90 minutes of football. They've conceded 6 goals in total between the second half of Chelsea and the first half of the North London derby. What's going wrong there? It seems really weird. The players just didn't look up for it. It's a North London bloody derby.
Oh dear! Like you start to want to go back to the drawing board to reconstruct how to make Tottenham a great team again. It's that bad of a situation. I can't think of too many worse phrases than that. But comparing them to the side that won 3-1-0s in a row to the side that are now on 3 straight Premier League defeats and have conceded 9 goals in a row with only 1 to respond to, it shows for me something has gone fundamentally wrong. I can't say too much into it, but there must be either a lack of belief in the creativity in the team, or simply put, they're just so poor defensively. And it was exposed enough times yesterday. The way Arsenal tore them apart with, as you've said, the counter-attacking football they demonstrated yesterday. Quick and swift, not giving them a chance to think about where they should be to position themselves to stop these attacks. I think the third goal is the most defining moments of the derby. Harry Kane losing possession in the Arsenal half when trying to, find a way to get Tottenham back into the match. Once he concedes possession, he's already labouring to get back into his own half. Once it even reaches Saka, he's having to go at what is close to 90% of his full speed. Attempts to make a tackle before assisting Saka technically to give Arsenal their third. Really and truly, it demonstrated for me that one of the 3 things that's wrong with Tottenham. 1, defensively, they are a mess. They cannot, for whatever reason, be able to play a cohesive back 4 and have the pivot one, whoever sits, whether that's Højbjerg or Winks, Skip on Ndombele, to sit. They don't do their jobs correctly. They all press forward. It leaves spaces in behind. Attacking wise, they don't look like this kind of team that are going to be able to break in behind the Arsenal back 4. Like the way they used to do that whenever they played Arsenal last season was to make sure they got them wide, stretched them, and exposed them in the spaces in the areas where they leave behind. So Bellerin last season, for example, when Son scored that long bender, was a good example of that. Tommy Arsenal, he did something different yesterday. Instead of going to the man, he just stood firm and waited to see what they could do next. He gave them a problem. And third and foremost, most foremost for me, is definitely the fact that there's just something missing at Tottenham right now. It's not Harry Kane. He's fit. He's fine. He's not scoring goals.
He is missing.
But he is somewhat missing in action, yes. Son scored yesterday. And he's technically, for me, their form player at the moment. So they're relying on Son to get them out of trouble. And there's only so much he can do to keep them in it. Harry Kane being missing is one huge factor for Tottenham for me. How he plays for England is, doesn't matter to us because he plays well for England. But when he goes back to his club after the shambles in the summer, not getting his move to City, is this his way of protesting against the club by saying, well, I didn't get what I wanted in the summer. So, yeah, sure, I'll play for you this season, but I'll just, chill
Oh,
and
but
take my
that goes
pace.
against this angel professional that Gary Neville has painted him out to be. So I doubt that is the situation. But before I come to you, Mark, I think one of my favourite parts of this weekend, besides the BBC sending a reporter to a fuel station to report on petrol shortage called Phil McCann, has got to be Tony Adams making a point in punditry that is his name Toniyasu, the new Japanese fullback, that he might have problems communicating with the back line when he speaks fluent English, and has already done a number of interviews in English for Arsenal and even done one on Sky Sports as well. I think either before that game or the last game. Well done, Tony Adams. That is superb punditry. Congratulations. Good research, that, Mark. And you've done your research on Spurs, haven't you? You've got a few points you want to make. What's going on there? What's going on with Kane?
Yeah, it's. I mean, that's poor punditry, isn't it? And he needs to do some research next time for sure. Listen, you cast your mind back to the first two weekend reviews that we did. Spurs won very narrowly. Obviously, we've already gone over that. 3 games, 1-0. And I very much mentioned that, Nuno isn't the right appointment for them. I've had many discussions with a lot of Spurs fans, mates that I've had, and they're all very unhappy about it. I think they've had a bit of a torrid 6 months, really, on the back of the European Super League. I don't think they've recovered properly from that. They didn't really have any spokesperson that gave any sort of remorse entirely. You had Harry Kane over the summer that's missed his move that he wants, and he's not firing, and I don't think the recruitment's been overly good. And as I mentioned before, I think Nuno is just an inexperienced Mourinho, and I know that Mourinho, we have our viewpoints on him, but he does in a roundabout way. He might be a bit sort of old dog new tricks, but he's too pragmatic for me. He's not a Spurs manager for me. And you saw this at Wolves, for the last year or so, he managed to get them into places at Wolves that they could only dream of a few seasons ago. But even then, the football was stagnating, and they still got rid of him. So you have to really ask the questions: is he the right man for Spurs? And I really don't believe he is. And you kind of alluded to it earlier, Brighton playing tonight. And I spoke to my mate about this over the weekend. He would have absolutely loved to go in with Graham Potter. I think he thinks he's excellent.
I think if he can have a big season with Brighton this year, he will be on for a top job potentially, because I think there could be a few upsets in the league this season potentially. Just quickly before we end on the North London derby, just each of you, just like straight answers. Mark, do Spurs or Arsenal finishing in the top 6 this year?
No.
Neil, Spurs or Arsenal, do they finish in the top 6 for you this season?
No.
Ahmed, same question to you.
Either of them. If they get to their act together, Tottenham could, but it's a tough ask right now. So probably for now, no. But just for now, that'll change later on.
I'd say if we look at it on logic, there's 6 better teams than both of them in the league at the very least. So yeah, it'd be an interesting one. And one of those better teams, or 2 of those better teams, I'd say, are Leicester and West Ham. Neil, Leicester drawing against Burnley. Actually, a last-minute goal for Burnley disallowed in that game. They were lucky to come away with a point, actually. But Jamie Vardy scoring a strange hat-trick. 1 an own goal, 2 brilliant finishes from him to score for Leicester as well. And then, of course, you absolutely frigging love Leeds, so I bet you were disappointed to see Antonio smashing a last-minute winner for West Ham.
It was only decent thing that made me smile all weekend. Well, there was other things that made me smile at the weekend, but we can't talk about them.
You liar.
But, no, I mean, Antonio, you could imagine the joy on my face. It was, my passion for Leeds is just, I really, really do hate them. And people who say they're rivals, they're rivals in a way, but they're not rivals because they've only been in the Premier League 2 years. But do we play Leicester next game? Have we got Leicester next?
Everton.
No, Everton.
I know we've got Leicester in the next 3 games, haven't we?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure Leicester are as good as advertised, to be honest. I think people, but they'll be difficult for us. We seem to have done all right against them, but I've got a feeling that could be a pivotal game for us coming up because, Rafa would love to stick it to us on at the weekend with his Everton side, and I'm not sure Leicester is good as good as advertised, and I've still got me doubts whether West Ham are actually that good, to be honest. But one of them will get top six. I'm not sure which one. I think one of them will get top six, but I'm not too sure which one. If you had a gun to my head, I'd probably say West Ham. But I think West Ham could get top six.
Great job Moyes is doing there. Fantastic job Moyes is
he's doing
there.
An unbelievable job. And I'm happy for him. You know, he's still got an enormous amount of money sitting in his pocket that we had to give him. So he could do the job for nothing. But I'm actually quite pleased with him because I think he's a nice guy.
I think we need to all keep an eye on two players who are on that pitch at Ellen Road. One of them being Rafinha and one of them being Bowen. I really think if both of them kick on this season, they could end up getting some big moves at the end of
Hasn't Bowen been linked with Liverpool?
And do you know what? I don't know if anyone else gets this watching Rafinha. He just reminds me of Nani. When he runs cold, he's not there and he's non-existent, shouldn't be on the pitch. But when he runs hot, fantastic. Every time he gets the ball, he looks like scoring and doing damage. Brilliant player. I want to talk about a draw that happened as well and a slight win. First of all, Ahmed, let's start with Watford and Newcastle and Everton's 2-0 win at Norwich. First question out of those is, how the bloody hell did Newcastle not win that game? And with Everton, what a signing Andros Townsend's been for them.
Strange, isn't it? What allegiances for previous matches do for you? I believe. I'll start with Everton. I believe Benitez was there when Townsend was there, or was Townsend at Palace? I think Townsend was at Palace at the time, but nevertheless, he seems to have found himself again under Rafa Benitez. I don't know what it is with free signings on Rafa Benitez, but he seems to get the best out of them whenever they turn up at a club. He gives them a chance and they shine. Townsend's had a good start to the season at Everton. He's impressed me, but someone I have to say he's done an absolute madness at Everton so far. Abdoulaye Doucouré. He started last season. Let's say he was his feeder season away from Watford. He spent a few years there in a mid-table mediocrity, but for the first time at Everton, he felt like a free player. He was sort of, I want to say, a bit like what Pogba should be for us, playing free, being able to allowed to go forward and do whatever he wants in the final third. He'll score goals, he'll create, he'll become a threat in the air. He becomes that extra body that a manager for an opposition side will tend to worry about. So I think Benitez with Everton has sort of, started to get the best out of them slowly but surely. But for me, they're still not that side that are ready to break into that, that European chase just yet. However, a solid win over Norwich, and certainly a few things to keep an eye on with them, especially the fact they still don't have Richarlison back. So if Richarlison's back fit, who knows how dangerous a form side they can be. As for Newcastle and Watford, oh dear, where do we begin? First of all, great goal from Longstaff. You'd think Newcastle would kick on against after that, and boy, do they have chances. I believe there was a couple of goals offside. I think Watford, who after they equalised, had one ruled out for clear offside at the end. But the shot of the weekend, if in the Premier League for me, is the Newcastle fans when Jacob Murphy fails to convert the clincher at the very end, because as he approaches the goal and shoots at Ben Foster, absolutely scuffs it. It's the sight of all the Newcastle fans, and please understand, this does not bring me any joy. It's a horroring moment. It's sad to see it, but it pains me to see it as well. Them all having hands on their heads, all shouting in frustration. Why isn't the ball in the net? I think the Newcastle commentator John Anderson summed it up perfectly. Put the ball in the net, man. And yeah, nothing's going right for Newcastle at the moment. Still without a win. Pressures on Steve Bruce. We need not talk about Mark Ashley, but clear to see there's something is set to change soon. I hope, and I'm wishing nothing more than the best for the Geordies. Watford for me is still finding their feet in the Premier League. Time to see if Hisco can get them fit and firing again, just in case they turn up against Liverpool anyway. So just keep our eye out for that particular game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was shocked. I thought Newcastle were well on top, and they should have won it in the end. But as you said again, a goal disallowed with Watford. It could have gone the other way. And whilst talking about Watford, your analysis on Doucouré spot on. But I also think if anyone watched Doucouré at Watford, there's a player there. There was always a player there. A great signing for Everton. Mark, let me let you take the floor of maybe the game of the weekend. Brentford, Liverpool. Wow, 6 goals. Brentford took them all away. There was a stunning goal in there from Curtis. Well, I'll say stunning goal. It took a big deflection, but he hit it proper hard as well, Curtis, for his goal. Some VAR around Salah's 100th goal. Of course, there was going to be something that happens there. What did you make of the game? It's fantastic, end-to-end stuff.
Yeah, I think it was probably a little bit unexpected. But listen, you talk about Watford not finding their feet. I think Brentford certainly have. I think they've got a very well-drilled team that seem to enjoy playing their football, play some good football, and they're really giving some teams problems. And you know, you'd be silly to come up and expect a guaranteed win. Listen, this goes back to my Chelsea point, really. I think that Liverpool may have become a little bit complacent there again, and teams can be found out. And everyone, again, as I said, is fallible. But yeah, I mean, very, very end-to-end, excellent stuff, good football to watch, and pretty even over the course of it. I think the only stat really was that Liverpool held most of the possession, but I think that's how Brentford have played in all the games. They kind of sit back, allow you to get it and get you on the counter, and they do that very, very, very well.
I think the highlight of my weekend had to be seeing Raul Jimenez score his first goal since that horrible injury. Didn't know if he was gonna be able to even play again. Just a beautiful goal. He done it all himself. Neil, a nice moment for obviously a very, very good striker who has proved himself in the Premier League. Do you think he can kick on from here?
Do you know what? I think with everything he's been through, if he doesn't kick on, he's back. You know, because I know, let me just explain that. He had a horrendous injury, you know, that in the past players never recovered from. I think there was the kid, was it Ryan Mason at Hull? Yeah. Had something not too dissimilar a few years back. And then his career was finished. But it was fantastic to see him playing again, and now he scored goals. If he does kick on, great. If he doesn't kick on, just as great. The fact that he's back and playing football and playing with confidence. I mean, one of my best friends is a Southampton season ticket holder, and he sent me a message, and he mentioned the Jimenez thing, but he also mentioned how absolutely dreadful Southampton are. So I think I might be nipping down the bookies to put a fiver on them to be relegated before the price shortens.
You say that though, Neil, and actually, if you can, sorry, finish your point. I want to dwell on that a bit more with Ahmed.
No, say your point, Ben.
I was going to say, you say that about Southampton being dreadful, but just moving on slightly to Ahmed quickly, because I know we're slightly run for time because Mark's got to jump off soon. Ahmed, Southampton dominated the game and created a lot of chances. They should have, again, we say about teams should have won. Southampton should have put a couple of those away.
Yeah, they've got, I think, Wolves' curse from earlier in the season when Wolves couldn't buy a win or score a goal for 3 straight games. Southampton have suddenly inherited that from them. If before this match against Wolverhampton Wanderers, they had 0-0s against West Ham and Manchester City and drew 2-2 with Sheffield United in the League Cup and against Newcastle. Obviously, the League Cup's not so much of a meaningful thing, but they scored goals at the start of the season, and that's something you can sort of, even losing to Everton, they got something in that game. They scored goals. Suddenly, they play Wolves and inherit Wolves' curse for scoring them. They dominated that match tenfold, and if they had taken even 1 or 2 of those opportunities, even with a bit of luck, Jose Sarr will be thanking his lucky stars. Not only did he get a clean sheet, but got away with that madness when he gave the ball away earlier on in the match. They had, I think, another opportunity in the second half, which was a mess, clearly. It just shows so right now, Southampton's luck is running short. They're playing good football. That's something, and I can credit them for that. But if they're not doing enough to stop leaking goals out of their defence, then it will obviously become a lot easier for plenty of sides to get points against them this season. I won't necessarily fully agree on Neil's point that they'll go down, because something tells me they'll find form somewhere against those sides in and around where they'll be this season. But for Wolves, Bruno Lage's done well. Raul Jimenez, talent. He's an absolutely fantastic player. And for the Premier League, I think he's boxed office. When he's on form, he scores goals. He gets the seats in, bums in seats at Wolverhampton, neutral or not. I'm sure those who wear old gold are proud of him. I also suggest keeping an eye on Huang Hee-chan. Once played for Salzburg, scored against Liverpool once, strangely enough, in the Champions League. He can kick on this season. Next big thing to come out of German football for me. But it's lovely to have him back. And if Wolves don't kick on from here, who knows what may happen. It's an unpredictable season as it is.
Just very quickly, I said this a few weeks back. If Jimenez doesn't score, Wolves doesn't score, and I think that's actually a hindrance to them more than anything. I think he's an exceptional striker. I'm very pleased for him, as you said, Ben. But the problem is, I don't think they've really got much else around the park to be able to give him other goals. And if he doesn't score, they don't win.
Yeah, one last word on Southampton. Livramento continues to look like some bloody talent out there at right back. Looks like a fantastic player.
What a player!
Will regret letting him go.
Well, and now, as you said, if James has got a bit of an injury, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Look, we'll leave that there. I know that it's Monday; it's a busy Monday for a lot of us, so we'll leave it at the 45-minute mark. Mark, thank you. Neil, thank you. Ahmed, thank you. Villarreal preview coming up a bit later on. You can set a reminder now. Just go to our YouTube channel, set a reminder for that, and join Connor and Callum McFadden, who's on Beyond the Pitch usually with Phil. Phil Brown will be joining us on that show tonight with some more great guests. So make sure you join us at All for United tonight for our Villarreal preview. And what's going to be the start of a big week for United this week? We need to rack up those wins. A Champions League win will go quite far. And obviously at the weekend against Everton, we'll shut quite a lot of people up, hopefully. Thank you for watching. That's another weekend review. Be back next Monday at 1:00. Ciao for now. Have a good day, everyone.